Hello, everyone. This is going to be a video on human trafficking. Okay, I am not 100% sure the history behind human trafficking, aside from chattel slavery, but I wanted to talk about this subject because it's not talked about enough in the media, and I mean, it's understandable for victims of human trafficking to not speak up because the human trafficking industry is very dangerous, very, very dangerous, with some of the most corrupt and evil criminals you could possibly think of. And most of the money that is made is it goes to criminal organizations such as the human trafficking industry. And then there are also corporate businesses that secretly support human trafficking. So I wanted to talk about this video because I believe that we as a human species are suffering from the negative side effects and the backlash of trafficking human beings. We shouldn't be trafficking any living organism, whether it's a spider or even an ant. We don't need to be trying to control other living organisms to our convenience. That's not how the world works, and it's not natural. Like, the universe doesn't support us when we go around trying to control other people. It's just not natural. But anyway, so with human trafficking, I can't say who all is involved in human trafficking, but what I can say from my own experience, my own personal experience, I was human trafficked. And I was human trafficked ever since I was a child. I want to say that I've been human trafficked ever since I was a baby, but I don't remember that far. I can only remember about as far back as 4. I was human trafficked, and I have been being human trafficked ever since I was 4. So imagine 22 years of life, being a victim of narcissistic abuse, sexual abuse, so much and so forth. And I'm making a huge risk, by the way, making this video. It's a huge risk, me making this video and sharing with you guys my story on human trafficking. It's not easy, and it hasn't been an easy road for me. But I'm doing this for my freedom, and I'm doing it for the freedom of other people. Okay, so for those who watch the cartoon Adult Swim television series called The Boondocks, for those who love The Boondocks, there's this episode called Freedom Land. For those who have watched it, I believe it's like the second to last episode on the 4th season. But that episode was about how a lot of greedy corporations and a lot of, I'm just going to flat out say it. I'm going to call out the elephant in the room. The extreme leftist and the extreme right European white males, like in that specific category. And when I'm talking about European white males that are on the extreme left and extreme right, I'm talking about the extremists, like the conservatives, the extreme conservatives that work with the jihadists to fearmonger people. I'm talking about that specific group, the top 0.01%, the percentile range of people that the majority of the masses don't feel comfortable talking about. Because if you start talking about those specific people, well, we all know about the list, Santa's naughty list, right? The blacklist, that's no different from Santa's naughty list. Yeah, that one. The list that everybody knows about. So, anyway, those group of people, those elite groups of people are the ones who are orchestrating these gang stalking programs, and they're orchestrating the human trafficking industries. And what they're doing is they're going around sabotaging innocent people and putting them in unfavorable situations to coerce, blackmail, and sometimes even brute force people to do things that they don't want to do, that they would otherwise have never, ever, ever done in their lifetime. So, yeah, these people, these elite groups of people, these top 0.01 percentile people are the ones who are the problem. And in the human society, these people are the problem. And they're not all white, but I'm just talking, just like, if I'm making a reference to the Boondocks episode, that's what they showed us, that they were the conservative white male minority, meaning that most white males in this entire world do not even share their views. Meaning that in today's age, even white male, the majority of white males know that those principles and ideals are wrong, and they wouldn't dare practice it. Even if they believe it internally, they wouldn't dare practice it on people. So within that episode, and then also within that elite group of people that were sitting there having a meeting in the office, it was only one person who was very adamant about forcing people to be slaves. Like, everybody else was kind of like, yeah, this is how we view them, but we're too lazy to force them to be slaves. And quite frankly, we've done this over and over and over again, to the point where the universe is no longer, providing us opportunities to enslave people. So at this point, I'm willing to give up the power struggle. Everybody in the office was willing to give up the power struggle because, human beings weren't providing them with any more fuel or leverage to enslave them. The universe wasn't providing them with any more opportunities. And quite frankly, they had families to feed. They had wives and children to go home to, and they didn't want to die trying to force people to do what they made very clear they weren't willing to do willingly. So everybody was kind of like, okay, look, we see them as slaves, but realistically, we can't force them to do what they don't want to do if they band together. And it's more of them than there are us, and we're losing people by the day. People just simply want to have fun and enjoy their lives. I think it's about time we just go ahead and put our differences aside. But it was that one guy, Ed Winsler II, who was very adamant about enslaving everyone. Even white people. It didn't matter who, as long as it just got to the point where it was no longer about just enslaving people of color or just black people. It was about putting everybody, anybody who he could control. That's who he was specifically trying to human traffic. Now, on that episode, they didn't necessarily show how people are sex trafficked, but they did show the humiliation rituals that they put people through in order to establish their dominance on them. And what they did to some of the stronger members of the groups was that they basically they put them through Chinese water torture. And that was just basically pouring water into somebody's face and then bringing them to the point of near death and then letting them breathe again. And they would and what I noticed though within that episode is some of the strongest people who were in the forefront of the entire organization were the ones who were subjected to humiliation rituals to shame them and diminish their worth. To shame them and diminish their worth. To make it seem like to everybody else that, well, if somebody this strong can tolerate all of this, maybe they're not as strong as you thought. And to basically take away the hope of the people. They've done this over and over and over again. To a point where I just feel like, the FBI can no longer fund these organizations anymore. You know, the government can't fund these organizations anymore because they've done this too much into too many good people. Too many good people have had to suffer at the hands of narcissistic people who want to control everybody and everything. And they've done this so many times, like assassinating leaders and, killing, people that are close to the leaders, people that the leaders of the revolution love the most, attacking children, killing children, raping people, just really doing everything in their power to take away people's sense of dignity and pride. And I think that we as human beings can understand that it doesn't really take much to break a person. We as human beings, as individuals, we are weak without the help of the universe and a higher power. We are weak without that, right? All of us are. I can admit that I'm weak without God. But the reality of the situation is when you're dealing with narcissistic bullies who have zero empathy and nothing but evil in their heart, they will go out of their way to attack somebody that everybody looks up to. So if everybody looks up to one particular person, what I've noticed that the gang stalkers and the elite will do a lot of the times is go out of their way to systematically destroy that person and make that person look like a loser, make that person look like there's somebody that they're not, so that they can get the general public to view that person in a negative light so that the general public can be controlled. That's like Malcolm X, and then everybody looks highly to Malcolm X. Everybody speaks highly of him. I can't think of not one person that said really anything negative about Malcolm X, and people thought very highly of him. But I mean, imagine if Malcolm X were still alive today and he were put through some of the humiliation rituals that we've seen other people go through. Like, imagine if a whole bunch of people just start beating up Malcolm X, or a whole bunch of people start doing some messed up, humiliating acts against him to attack his manhood, to break him down. That's like America doing that to Malcolm X. I mean, they did do that to him, but no one's view of him changed. Everybody still respected him because they knew what the crooked cops and the Nation of Islam was doing to him. They knew, the people, we could see what they were doing to him. And we know that he had a gang of people that were ganging up on him. And when you have 100+ people ganging up on you at once and you're only one person, it's only so much you can do. You can't control all of the abuse that 100 or more people are subjecting you to. Realistically, as much as we like to give ourselves credit and think we have more power than we actually do, we don't. So, that's like them doing that to Malcolm X and doing everything they can to diminish him and belittle him and disrespect him. So, and then on the episode of the Boondocks, that Freedom Land episode, Ed Wuncler II did everything he could to try to break Huey. He did everything he could. And it worked, because we all can be broken, and we all have been broken probably many times before and many times over again in the future. But that's the beauty of getting back up. So Ed Wuncler II tried to break Huey, break him down, break him. And he was just a 10-year-old, but he tried to break him. And he put him through Chinese water torture. And, he would whoop his granddad in front of him. They didn't show that part, but Huey implied that, Ed Wuncler II and, Uncle Ruckus were getting violent, and it was getting to the point where, they weren't able to fearmonger Huey, but they realized that attacking the people closest to him a lot of the times was what got him to comply. It's like, well, you can't, it don't matter how many times you hit me. You're not gonna, if I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. It don't matter how many times you call me names and threaten me and lash out. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. So what they started doing was they started hurting Granddad. They started making threats at Riley, and it was getting to a point where the people close to him were being used as a liability against him. So unfortunately, he did temporarily have to surrender to some humiliation, unfortunately. But, you know, he made it clear, like, after what I've been through, I'm never going through this again for you or for nobody. And, you know, his grandfather was like, you won't ever have to do this again. Like, I should have been stepped in and helped you. I saw you, you know, you were defending our human rights, and I at the point was too self-centered, focusing on myself to even realize that you were trying to help me this whole time. So, yeah. And that's often at times what they do to targeted individuals who make a stand against the system. They treat us the same way they treat Huey Freeman. You know, they call us domestic terrorists. They try to attack our character. They try to make it seem like we're bad people. You know, they try to make it seem like we're untrustworthy. You know, that we're monsters, that we're creeps. You know, that we're loose, or that, you know, we just all in all, you know, insane people. That's what they do. You know, they try to assassinate our characters. That's what they start off doing. You know, when they target us, you know, they assassinate our character, and they get people to they try to get agents, people who are willing to do the dirty work for the elite, to earn the trust of people who are targeted individuals, to sabotage and ruin that person's life. And although to some people that sounds harmless, you know, sexual, spiritual, emotional, verbal, mental abuse is dangerous. Like, that's not something that could just be pacified as nothing or harmless. You know, that type of abuse is some of the most dangerous kind, because somebody could really be hurting and no one would ever notice. That type of abuse is the type of abuse that lasts for 20 so odd years. How do you think that the human trafficking industry has gotten as powerful as it has? How do you think the gang stalking organizations have gotten as strong and bulky as they have? Because there was a lot of abuse that went undetected and couldn't be proven because it wasn't physical abuse, because it wasn't overt and in your face. It was subtle. But the intentions were still the same, maybe even more insidious than the overt intentions. So, from my experience, I don't know the reason. I'm not 100% sure on the reason why I was targeted, other than the fact that I was a good person. I have influence. Like, you know, because I mean, if we're thinking about trendsetters, most of the people who are trendsetters are people within the urban community, people within a certain age, and people who share certain views that the general public can relate to. I think I'd qualify myself on that list. So if me being a good person, on top of the fact that the general public can relate to me, that makes me a powerful weapon, whether it's against the people or for the people. Now, I can see how somebody who is an elitist or a Satanist will want to get their hands on something like that. Of course. You know, when we're dealing with people who have control issues, you know, a lot of times they gravitate towards the people who have the most potential. You know, if you're thinking about, you know, you got to put yourself in the mindset of a loser who hasn't accomplished anything, won't accomplish anything, and has no intention on accomplishing anything. Not because they had unfortunate circumstance, but they like to cheat other people. They like to have other people do the hard work for them. They like to take from others instead of working hard on their own. Those are the losers that I'm talking about. Those are the types of people, that the predators that gravitate towards those who they know are going to be successful. And those are the types of people who they leech off of. So if we all put ourselves in a mindset of an elitist who never had to work a day in their life, and their whole income revolves around enslaving other people. We have to take our emotions out of this one and understand that although this person is pure evil, it's not personal. Because if we take it personal, then it's going to distract us from taking these people down, which that's what needs to happen. They got to go. These people have got to go. They've been here long enough. And if a human being can sex traffic or human traffic or enslave another human being with no remorse, no conscience, no guilt, you got to go. You ain't welcome here on this earth. Like, you got to go. You got to go. You got to go. We don't want you here. Period. We don't. But for me, I was gang stalked because I was a good person and because I'm gay. That's why I was gang stalked. And the reason why I'm sharing this information with you guys is because it got to a point for me where it was life or death. I really didn't have a choice. I didn't really get that option on whether or not I get to keep my privacy. Like, I didn't get that choice. That choice was taken from me by people who felt like they had authority over me. That free will, that privacy that we all have a constitutional right to, was taken away from me. My constitutional rights were taken away from me because I was dealing with people who were envious of me. I was dealing with people who were narcissistic. I was dealing with people who had no empathy, no conscience, just greed, pure greed and selfishness. And of course, I did ignore red flags, but I didn't know that, me ignoring the fact that somebody was an asshole meant that I was going to be a slave, but I get it though. I did ignore those red flags though, but I'm really sharing this because I want people to learn from my experience. But yeah, those red flags will, like, if we ignore red flags, we will pay for that later. I ignored a bunch of red flags that I had to pay for later with my reputation and my self-esteem. But the red flags that I saw though wasn't like life-threatening, but it was enough for me to either confront the person about their behavior or to just get up and walk away from that person permanently. And I didn't take the initiative. And I don't want other people to ignore a red flag. When they see red flags in people, I don't want them to ignore it either. I want them to learn from me that those red flags need to be confronted. And if that person does it again, just know that it was intentional and just walk away. Cut them off. I mean, that person could be a good person, but they're just toxic, Not everybody that displays red flags is a narcissist or has a personality disorder, but they're definitely damn sure not healthy to be around. And damn sure not somebody you want close to you. So, so for me, I was human trafficked because I was a good person and because I was gay. And I was attacked by the Christian church that I went to growing up. When they found out about my beliefs, they found out that I wasn't a Christian and that I was gay, and I was more than willing to step outside of the cult and be my own person. That was when the gang stalking started. That was when I was being poisoned at work. I was being followed home. I noticed that my close connections were infiltrated and destroyed. I just noticed that my life was falling apart, and I know for sure that it wasn't bad karma. Like, I'm pretty sure that some of it happened to teach me a lesson, but it wasn't anything that I did in this lifetime to earn to earn the disrespect that I had to go through. I did not deserve that. And really, most of the people who are being human trafficked do not deserve the disrespect. The disrespect that they have been subjected to go through, they didn't deserve it. Most of them did not deserve it. And I'm stepping up and saying something because, like, I've been enslaved for 20 years. Like, I can't take it anymore, and I can't sit here and know that there are other victims that are going through the same thing that I'm going through and not say anything about it anymore. I'm not the only one that suffered at the hands of narcissistic abuse and human trafficking and forced prostitution. Like, I was forced into this. I didn't want to. It was against my will, though. It was against my free will. It was completely against my free will. And I'm not the only person that this happened to, but I'm willing to be the only one, or the first one, if I have to be, to say I'm a victim of human trafficking. I'm willing to say that some of the people that I trusted, that I went to school with, that I was related to, that I went to church with, that I thought I could trust, sold me out. It could have been because of envy. It could have been because of fear. It could have been because of codependency. It could have been because they were enablers. Who knows what their real reasons for? Only the people that threw me under the bus can really give you that answer. I can't say why they did what they did, but I can say that it was people that I trusted, that I loved unconditionally, that threw me under the bus. And they thought it was funny. I mean, a lot of these people, they made fun of me. They kicked me while I was down. And it wasn't just the people that I was close to. It was people who just knew who I was, that participated in the gang stalking program, that made a conscious decision to participate. Because no one's forced into gang stalking. Just know that. Now, human trafficking may have been something that somebody was forced to do, but gang stalking is a choice. Let me make that very clear. Somebody that is a gang stalker is somebody that chose to be a gang stalker. Now, somebody that is a victim of human trafficking and who was forced to get other people into it, that's different. There's a difference between someone that chooses to be a gang stalker and someone that's coerced and forced into recruiting other people into human trafficking. A victim that's being human trafficked cannot just get up and run. It's not that easy, and it's also very, very hard for a victim to go get help. Because how do we know that when we go get help, we're not talking to another abuser? Like, it's such a high risk asking for help. It's such a high risk picking up the phone and calling the right person. Because I'm just gonna let you know right now. If I'm one of the people where I call and ask somebody for help and they end up being an abuser, I know I ain't got the patience for it. Because 20 years of being human trafficked is not, it has a way of bringing out the dark side of some of the sweetest and most kindest people. Like, the things that they do to people when they human traffic people, the degrading things that they do to people, If I'm telling you, for those who have not been human trafficked, if you even saw what we had to go through, if some of y'all saw what we had to go through, some of y'all would not be so quick to point the finger. And if it happened to you, you would not want to point the finger at nobody and say, "Oh, well, just get out. Why are you still here? Why are you still tolerating it?" Well, you can ask Harley Quinn the same question. We all know what the Joker did to her and how he messed her mind up. And like I said, we as human beings, we are weak without the protection of a higher source. We're fragile. But yet we portray ourselves as stronger than what we really are, when really most of that power comes from the source anyway. What are we without the power of the source? Weak vessels. And so when we're dealing with people who take advantage of our vulnerabilities and exploit us, unfortunately, we are left powerless. Some of us don't get that choice on whether or not we can just walk away from human trafficking. If it was that easy to walk away from human trafficking, then there would be no human trafficking businesses. There wouldn't be people out here scared as hell to tell their story because they're scared that they're going to be put on the list, or they're scared that somebody's going to hurt them. If it was that easy to walk away from abuse and take our power back and our self-respect back, then there would be no abuse. You know, it's easy for those who have never been through abuse, who've had it made their whole entire lives, to point the finger at those who've been abused and say, oh, well, just get up off your bootstraps. Stop making excuses. It's easy for you to judge until you're put in that very same position and stripped of all your power, of all your personal power. And you can't do nothing about it but take it. You know what I'm saying? And if you're put in that position, then it's going to be that aha moment, that bell ticking, you know, that light bulb flickering, that, oh, that's why you didn't make a move right away. That's why you didn't call the police right away. That's why you took so long. Now I see why. Because it's easy to judge from the outside, but when you get inside, you see things that human beings should never see. There are some things that I've witnessed that I should not have seen. Like when I was 14 years old, there was a woman that was so nice to me and so kind to me. And she used to always encourage me because she used to see me ride those little wave boards, those little ripsticks. And she used to encourage me every single day. She used to encourage me every single day. Continue to do that because it's hard out here in the hood. Like,